Welcome everybody, my name is François Letarte and this is my channel JDR D30, channel about tabletop role-playing games. Today is a video response to Rhaegar the Red Dragon, Rhaegar the Dragonborn, sorry, about top 10 games I have yet to play. Well, top 10, it's tough for me, even I have a list here and I think I have even more games than that, but well, these are games that I'm curious about or I want to play. I don't know if I'll ever play them, but here they are. Well, the first one on my list is Numenera. Well, with all the hype that was around that game by the end of 2013, yes, I'm curious about how this game works and how it plays out. It seems a very interesting game and very interesting setting, a very interesting way to play games. So yeah, sure, I'd like to try it at least once in my life. Second game on my list is, well, is Fudge or Fate. I put them in the same basket, even if these are two different games. Well, their core mechanic, the how to roll the dice, is the same. Because I'm not sure if I ever run something with one or the other, if I will mix them both or play them apart. I'm interested in Fudge since a long time, in fact. But Fudge seems to be a game that I have to sit down and work out a little to have something for me. And Fate, I'm not comfortable with the mechanic, doesn't mean that it's not good. Red Dice Diaries talks about it quite often. It seems to be a very interesting game. I just didn't have the time to really sit down with the book and read it just to really understand how it works. Well, maybe both, maybe a mix of the two, I don't know, but that's something I want to be running that. Numanera, I want to be more a player. I don't, well, I don't mind being a game master, but Fudge and Fate, I'd like to be a game master and a player too, of course. Next game. 7th Sea. Well, I love swashbuckling. One of my favorite novels of all time is Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas, and I like swashbucklers. I like swashbuckling, and when that game came out, well, I almost bought it and never got the chance to buy it because I was already involved into some other gaming, so I didn't want to get into that. But it always got my attention. There's a Nolinquisitor as a whole series talking about 7th Sea, and well, yeah, I was drooling at every episode. That's the kind of game I like. And my copy of 7th Sea, I'm really lucky, but I found it kind of for 50 cents at the used bookstore. And well, all the pages are falling apart. I have to check that out, but every pages are there, so I have the player's guide. I could be playing that. Well, eventually, yeah, that's something I'd like to try. 7th Sea. I also have the D20 version that was called Swashbuckling Adventures, and every time I have to get involved into Pathfinder game or something, I flip through by some Swashbuckling Adventures, so just in case I didn't find just in case I find a class or type of character that may fit, and a swashbuckling type, of course. Next game. Palladium Fantasy. Palladium Fantasy is something that, well, I was always interested in, never got the chance to play it. I know that game for a very, very long time. I remember one of my friends coming at my home and showing me that, you know, that black book written in red. That I think it's the first edition, and yeah, it looks like Dungeons and Dragons, but with a different twist and different feel to it. I have played Rift. I don't like Rift, but it's the same system. But I think in Palladium Fantasy it will make more sense. And Juice734 has lots of video on Palladium Fantasy. There are others I don't remember. I may put the link below of channels who talks about Palladium Fantasy. And for a book to buy, I think it's not very expensive. You know, you have a whole game in a softcover book and something that feels like old school gaming with a different twist. So that's Palladium Fantasy. Next game. Okay, you saw the image, but I have to check my list. Paranoia. Paranoia has always intrigued me as a game. For me, it felt like a game that is a good training for a game master, since it's a strange context. You work for the computer. If a player character do something that does not please the computer, he destroys it, and all those crazy missions, kind of dark humor to it. For me, it seems to be a training, you know, a game to train you as a game master to push your limits a little with this crazy context and crazy game, because it's just crazy for the characters, it's crazy for the game master alike. I'd like to be a player into that too. It seems to be, you know, a game on the edge of, you know, we're going a little apart from standard role-playing games here. It has Paranoia came in many editions. I showed you an image of a French edition of it, but yeah, that's something I'd like to try one. Next game, Gurps Discworld. Well, Gurps, I have an experience with Gurps, little experience. I have some source books at home. I have a rule book. I've played a little of Gurps, but the Discworld, it's well, for those who don't know what's Discworld, is it's a fantasy world created by Terry Pratchett, and it's a very crazy, you know, fantasy world. You can have a mix of everything. You can have you know, a party of courageous knights with all their watches who was going to fight a robot coming from space, and all the and on their way to their mission there will be a hot dog stand. Okay, it may seem ridiculous when I say it like that, but Terry Pratchett is a very skillful author who writes all those crazy things about his world. The role-playing game, for me, that's something I would like to try for real. I haven't read a novel of Pratchett. I know much about it because my girlfriend, my fiancée, has read lots of novels, and many players around my table have read novels from Pratchett, and there are, I think, 2 movies. And I've heard a lot about it. I've played board games with Discworld as an environment, some video games, so I know a little about it. And I think that's a kind of game. Okay, I think it may be a challenge to play because you can have so much of anything in a game, and you have to. There's a tone to it, this humorous tone to it, and I think it's going to be a real challenge to play. I guess I'll have to read a novel or 2 before getting into it, but I'd like to try Gurps Discworld just to have my foot into that crazy world that is the Discworld. Next. Okay, Castles and Crusades. I have, I think, a book from the 2nd or 3rd edition at home. Well, I've heard so much good things about Castles and Crusades, about being a good alternate old school game, and I'd like to try it just to see if the feel is right, if the feeling is right, if I, when I play that, if I feel that I have that old school feel, but without crazy rules that are coming from nowhere, like some rules from old Dungeons and Dragons that, well, personally, that I think that sometimes it feels that they're coming from nowhere. So it seems that Castles and Crusade have made a big cleanup of what Dungeons and Dragons is to make a game that is more streamlined. So I'd like to take a try once. Maybe I'll get someday the latest edition. It was on Kickstarter or something. I'll check that out. So Castles and Crusades. So for those who don't know that, it's a kind of a retro clone of Dungeons and Dragons, a cleaned up one. Next game. Who you're gonna call? Ghostbusters. Well, I'm a fan of the movie, the first one, and I think it's a fun game. Perfect for one shots, and it's the grandfather of the D6 system. It's one of the first games that was created with the system now known as the D6 system that was used in the Star Wars role-playing game for many years. And hey, something special about that game. It was created by the same guys who created the Call of Cthulhu role-playing games. Exactly, Sandy Peterson, Lynn Willis, and another name that I don't know, I don't remember, but these are the same guys who created the D6 system for Ghostbusters. And Ghostbusters was a little ahead of their time. I read the book a little, and you create your character, you put skills, and the skills doesn't have standard names. You can create a name like uh, you're good at driving a sports car, or or just looking good with a suit. You create all those skills that goes in the same tone as the humor in the movie. So it seems to be a very loosely based game, and maybe I'm a big fan of the D6 system, so I'd like to try it just to see how loose it can be. Maybe it will give me some inspiration to my more straight D6 game. The next role-playing game, the Cortex system. Well, I have tried it. I have the Serenity role-playing games. I've made some one-shots, but I haven't played enough to consider me as as having really played it. When I was doing these one-shots, it was very loose. I wasn't comfortable 100% with the rules, so I was going with many things on the fly. But I'd like to dig in the system and really try it. And well, maybe in Serenity Firefly or any other settings. I'd like to be the game master to that. So it's my plan to someday really experiment the Cortex experience, just to see up to where that game can go. My small experience of it had some kind of a disappointment, but I have hope for that game. I don't know why. There's many things that I like for what I've read so far, so that will be a try. Next game, The One Ring. Tolkien is the basis of many fantasy gaming around the world, and my feeling is that all the role-playing games that came out before The One Ring didn't really get it right. MERP was a little rules heavy, but the source books seemed to be quite accurate. They were enjoyable. The Decipher version was I didn't really like it. Back then I had also Star Trek that Decipher was publishing. was the same game system as the Lord of the Ring game back then, and I know I've read the book. I was enthusiastic at first, but after reading it, I didn't want to play that. It felt like a pale D20 clone. Instead of rolling a D20, you rolled kind of 2d6. So the Lord of the Ring by Decipher didn't nail it, but the One Ring really seemed to nail it. And one thing that that's very attractive to me is that they published a game, but with not with all the Middle Earth setting in it. They concentrate on only a portion of the world. I think that's perfect for me because when I run a game, if I'm a setting freak, okay, and if I get into a canon, some kind of a canon, I want to read everything about it. In Lord of the Ring, it's huge, okay. I Before the One Ring, I was always telling myself that I never ran something into Middle Earth because it was too huge and I would go crazy. But the One Ring seems to give it to you bits by bits, and that seems quite fine. I prefer to be a player in that, live into that Tolkien world, and play with a game master with Middle Earth crack. I like that. So I have yet to play that. And I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have, yeah, I had 11 games. I will show you the 11th one. I know that it's more than 10, but here it is. Metamorphosis Alpha is a curiosity for me. It is said that it's the first science fiction role-playing that was ever published. And it seems to be a big campaign, in fact, because the story is on a big starship that drifts in space. The starship called Warden, which is a a spin-off of the name of the author, which is James Ward. And the characters are in there. They don't know much about why they are there or something, and they have to explore that ship and survive. It seems like a big dungeon crawl in the future. But there seems to be some kind of a feeling to it, a personality to this game. I know that the game on Drive-Thru RPG is very cheap, so maybe I will give it a try. But for me, it feels more like if it was a big campaign with a rule system. For long-term play, I don't know. I know that there's been other editions of Metamorphosis Alpha, and I didn't check out. Maybe there's something going on right on. I think that the author is still doing new editions of his game, so maybe the game world expands elsewhere. I think it was the basis of the game Gamma World. I think that the game Gamma World was the follow-up of Metamorphosis Alpha. Gamma World was a game in the 80s. It was big. It was huge. It came from TSR. Post-apocalyptic world with the mutants and all this. It was very interesting. But Metamorphosis Alpha, yeah, I'd like to get through that ship, at least one in my life. I may add, I've had many other games, but that's what came in the top of my head. I set up that list in under 5 minutes, and it was quite enough. So, I hope you've enjoyed my tour of my RPGs that I have yet to play. Feel free to comment, like if you want, and if you have any questions, I will respond soon. So, my name is François Letarte for JDR D30, and I hope you have as much fun in your life as in your game. Bye.